I'm so buzzing, having just been to see Brother Ali, and from the very first time I ever heard his music, I was like, I need to see this guy perform. And the last few tours I'd kept seeing, US dates, and I just had in this little request in the back of my mind, like, fucking hell, get over to Glasgow. So that came to pass. And yeah, I did the Blood on Beats writing intensive. I think it was a couple of years ago, yeah. And that was a massive thing. Like, I actually asked a pal of mine to support me financially to be able to engage with that, and it was so enriching, not just from a creative practice point of view, but like, he so humbly gives a perspective that is rooted in like walking the talk of being on a spiritual journey, not being afraid to acknowledge that and to speak to that, and to actually invite other people to consider or explore that is actually the very nature of life, and the very nature of living is to be connected to this mystery and this sense of wonder. And so it is embedded then in the way that he walks and talks, and comes out through the writing. It comes out in the facilitation, because he's stepping into a mentorship role, and he was very forthcoming about who his mentors were, not just musically, but in life, like the people that have influenced him, shaped him, poured into him. So that was an amazing training to do. And there are certain things from that like are really poignant, that still stick out to me, that I kind of make reference to in a writing practice space. So to see him perform was like, yeah, that was a wish fulfilled. And and then also to have an opportunity to have an interaction, even just for a moment, just to in person say, thank you, I appreciate you, and I appreciate your work. And mentioned that I'd done the course a couple of years back, and the first thing he asked was, are you still writing? So like, that's exactly that is the question you need from a creative point of view, for somebody that has like been in a mentorship capacity, that has like activated something in you, and has been a support in some way in your creative life, for them to actually check in and say, are you still doing the work? Are you still honing the craft? Are you still releasing what needs to be said? And I said, yeah, it's up and down, and yeah, that's the way of it. So I actually have been doing more writing practice. Recently I've been kind of engaging with workshops that are more poetry focused. I've done 2 in the last 2 weeks, and yeah, that's been just really good for me to create a space that's for creative practice stuff, that's for me, like as an artist, to just connect and to have someone else holding space and someone else giving you prompts, and then also an opportunity, you know, with other people going through the same process to actually share some of what you've been writing, to have that witnessing piece. So I have been doing that in the last couple of weeks, and I think sometimes it takes like an external thing to give you a jolt or a prompt into reconnecting with a regularity in your practice. And you know, consistency is so important in terms of progressive development, but then also so that, okay, it's natural for there to be dips and peaks and troughs, sometimes even breaks, and then sometimes blocks as well. But working with a regular practice means that you're much more easily able to navigate potential blocks or barriers when they do come up, because that is natural. But the longer you're away from the practice, the harder it is to push through resistance. That, you know, there's more emotional weight there, or if there's any sense of kind of guilt or shame about not coming to the practice, then that can, yeah, it can just create a massive wall between you and the creative expression outlet, which is in itself, it's therapeutic in itself. It's, once you get going and you find your flow with it, you're like, why have I ever paused or ever stopped this? So I'm going to take this experience and this, yeah, like anytime you go and you see someone performing that you admire, especially when it's, you know, rhyme and you're getting into like the lyrical content and the pacing, but then to actually see someone performing and embodying and like vicariously you're living through that. And if you are working with voice as a medium, then you can learn so much by observing other performers, because you're actually seeing where the energy is and the impetus to help carry that particular expression, whether it's like a line or a phrase forward. So I got so much energy from watching that performance, and it really, really fired me up, like intellectually, emotionally. I'm still kind of processing that bit, but then, you know, physically as well, actually, like moving with that sound, with that sonic landscape, and actually getting inside of the words, I think is such a good way to to draw on that well of inspiration for your own practice. So I'm gonna allow this to be an energizer and a stimulator, and also that question of, are you still writing, as a kind of a little prod, a little nudge, you know, and also, yeah, a reminder to step into that space, because I've got a lot to say. There's quite a lot brewing. There's quite a lot of things been going on in the last while, and the rate at which those shifts and changes have been happening, you know, in tandem with the processing piece, sometimes it syncs together, and then sometimes it's like a little off kilter, you know, like you cue the track and something's not quite in place, and it's kind of, yeah, starting to create a little bit of distortion and cross rhythm that is like not so helpful. So writing is an outlet that helps to take away those rough edges and like get into like the meat and bones of the subconscious and like the intangible emotional space that somehow needs this like reflexive physical practice to like activate that bit of the brain to actually get it, you know, out onto the page. So yeah, that is going to be my next little block of creative work, is coming back to the writing and creating sacred space and ritual around the writing, to ensure that that is like, yeah, it's well set up and it's well supported, and it means that it becomes an invitation and it becomes a space that I want to step into, rather than, you know, there being like any intrepidation or heaviness around that. It's like, oh, you've helped to create this container of like, I want to enter into that temple and actually, yeah, scribe from the soul. So